So while Sergio Perez and Fernando Alonso were busy making themselves into Lance Stroll and Logan Sargeant, at the front Max Verstappen and Lando Norris were pushing each other all the way to the finish line in Imola, with Max coming out just ahead of Lando by under a second, the closest margin of victory we've had this year. Now obviously for those two it's been a pretty good drive for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, but what about the rest of the drivers? Well, let's find out as we get into my race ratings, my best and worst, for the 2024 Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Coming in at 5th worst is going to be Zhou Guanyu. In reality, there's a number of drivers that could have filled this slot. There's a number who are sort of sitting in this average kind of range, but the one I've gone for is Zhou. His race was just a little bit underwhelming, not too much going on, and that's the reason he's here. But by no means was he awful compared to the guys that would have been 6th, 7th or 8th worst. For Zhou in this one, it's going to be a 5. As I say, the rating's not that awful, it's just a case of someone has to sit in this 5th worst slot. 4th worst then, and we have Logan Sargeant. Ultimately for him, it was just another case of generally going round near the back of the pack, finishing ahead of the likes of Fernando Alonso, who had a race to forget, Alex Albon, who didn't finish, and then Valtteri Bottas, who we'll get to later on in this list. For Logan, it's a case of he's not made mistakes, he's just not done anything special. For a rating, it's going to be a 4.5, it's not awful or anything, it's actually slightly better than his average for this year, but I still feel like it was a bit underwhelming. Then we get into our 3rd worst slot, and I've got Zhou's teammate Valtteri Bottas. Again, like I've said a couple of times this video, the theme is really underwhelming, with Valtteri's performance in Imola just kind of summing that up. P18, the only people behind you are Alonso and Alex Albon, it's just really not gone too great for the Finn. Rating wise, he's going to be getting a 4, again like Logan, it's not like he's made terrible mistakes, it's just been a pretty sort of below average drive, and just marks him down that little bit compared to the Williams. 2nd worst then, and we're going to go with Sergio Perez. Now yes, most of the damage was done in qualifying, however during the race he went off into the gravel, made a mistake there, that cost him a little bit later on having to get past people. The amount of cars that just flew by him was kind of sad to see, and in reality if you're in a Red Bull and you've only made it from P11 to P8, that's pretty disappointing. Once again your teammate is up there winning the race. For a rating for Sergio it's going to be a 3.5, it's probably going to say it's his worst weekend of the year, and well, just a bit disappointing. But my worst driver for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix is going to be Fernando Alonso. Qualifying went awful following a crash in practice, and then getting into the race just couldn't really make much progress. It was always running round near the back of the pack, eventually pitting at the end to try go for a fastest lap, but in general just a disaster of a weekend for Fernando. It's his worst finish in quite some time without actually DNFing from the race. For Fernando in this one, it's going to be a 3. He's not crashed or anything, it's just so below par and what we expect from Fernando, which is why this rating is so low. Moving on then into my top 5, and in 5th place, I've got Nico Hülkenberg. He's had a really solid season this year, and Imola was just another example of that. P11, so out of the points, but still just 1 place away, comfortably ahead of his teammate, and generally within that sort of top 10 range for a lot of the race. It's just a good drive from him. Yes, he's not picked up the point in the end, but then again, the only person outside the top 10 who really should have been there is probably Fernando Alonso. So rating-wise for Hülkenberg, it's going to be a 7. He's finished a fair way ahead of his teammate in terms of timings. It's only the 1 place, but in terms of timings, he was quite far ahead. Was in the top 10 for most of the race, and overall just looked like he deserved a good result. Then in 4th place, I'm going to be going with Oscar Piastri. He finished in 4th in the race, having started 5th. Did qualify up in 2nd, but got himself a 3-place grid penalty for impeding Kevin Magnussen. However, in the race in the early stint was right on the back of Sainz the entire time, and when they stopped early, made the undercut work, quite comfortably as well, getting ahead of Carlos. From there, the pace looked fine, not quite on the level of his teammate and Leclerc ahead, but still well ahead of Sainz and pretty comfortable in that 4th place in the end. For Oscar, the rating is going to be a 7.5. I feel like if he had started the race in that 2nd place, I don't think the guys behind him would have been able to get past. He might not have been quicker outright, but at Imola, it's the track position that matters, and so that penalty in qualifying did hurt him. But still made up some places, and 4th is a good result. Then in 3rd place, sticking with the theme of people in their positions, it's Charles Leclerc in 3rd. Considering that he's beaten his teammate fairly comfortably, even though that they were together on track. Don't forget as well, there was a point when he was putting a load of pressure on Lando Norris, looking to go from 3rd into 2nd. Then the car fell away a little bit towards the end. But on the whole, it's a really solid drive from Charles. He's kept up for Norris for a lot of that, but in the end has had to settle for 3rd place, which isn't a bad result. Rating wise, it's going to be a 7.5, same as Piastri. I think relative to what we probably expected for them, they've both done pretty well. Then my second best driver, and I've actually gone with Max Verstappen here. The top two are both great, but I feel like we expect that little bit more from Max, which is why he's down in second, and you'll see who's in first. With Max in this one, we actually saw him really having to work for a race win, which we haven't really seen for a while, and to be honest, at the end he did. He saw Norris closing, and Norris made a couple of mistakes, but Max didn't. It was a really solid drive. Again, the reason he's in second is probably because we just expect a little bit more from Max compared to, say, Lando. Rating wise, it's an 8, it's a really solid drive, definitely not up there with his 9s and 10s of the season so far, but still a really solid drive. Then of course in first place that leaves Lando Norris, coming home in second place by less than a second, and to be honest, had Verstappen not got the pole in qualifying, not had that massive tow from Nico Hülkenberg, Norris probably starts on pole and therefore could win this race. And again, the reason he's ahead of Max is probably because we would expect Verstappen to do a little bit more. However, for Norris to push him all the way to close up the gap at the end when it looked like there was nothing there, it's a top drive. Rating wise, he does get the same as Verstappen, which is an 8. However, the pair of them, I think I'd put them in this order in terms of an overall ranking, Norris just ahead of Verstappen. But anyway, there you have my race ratings for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Norris and Verstappen at the top, with the likes of Perez and Alonso down at the bottom. Very uncharacteristic for Fernando. Anyways, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed, give the video a thumbs up, get yourself subscribed to the channel, and until next time, take care.